Welcome to St. Kilda Shule's Kabbalat Shabbat service. I'm Rabbi Hillel Nagel. Whenever you buy a car, in particular a used car, you need to work out what factors are important to you. Is it the price of the car? Perhaps it's the year that the car was built. Maybe the number of kilometers that it's gone, the size of the engine or the color. If you ask people what are the most important parts of a car, you might get different answers. Some might say it's the engine. If you don't have an engine, the car's not going anywhere. Some might say the wheels. Can't go without wheels. Some might say the transmission. Someone who thinks a bit deeper might say, well, the driver's the most important part of the car. But really, if a car's missing any of those things, it cannot move. So really, they're all equally important. The most important part of the car is the purpose it serves. The most important part of the car is the passenger. This week, we read the parsha of Bamidbar, the first parsha of the book, the fourth book of Moses, Bamidbar. In English, we refer to it as Numbers. So let me share with you some ideas about numbers or counting. Firstly, the Torah tells us that counting the Jewish people is a bad thing. We can't count the Jewish people because they're as numerous as the stars in the sky or as the sand in the sea. We can't put a number on it. Yet, in this week's parsha, it commences with the census of the Jewish people. Hashem counts the people. And he counts them on a number of occasions, because counting people is an expression of love. Consider all the things we might count. We might count money, or holidays, overseas trips, maybe carats in gold, or the number of calories we've lost. Counting can be good as well. So is counting good or is it bad? To answer this question, we need to look at the Torah's word for counting in Hebrew. When we talk about counting days, like the Omer, or the Shemitah years, or the Jubilee year, the Yovel, we use the word Sfira, V'safarta. That's what counting is when we count days or years. But when we count people, the Torah uses a different word. It uses the word Su'ul. Su'ul et Rosh B'nai Yisrael means lift up the Jewish people. It's a different word for counting. So why does the Torah use different words for counting things and for counting people? Let's think of it this way. When counting people, there are two opposing notions. Firstly, every number is unique. If you're a member of a shul, you might be given a seat number. If you're a member of a club, you might be given a club number. Each person has a unique number. On the other hand, when you count somebody and give them a number, you really strip away their unique nature. You take away who they really are and just put a number on them. Think about Nazi Germany, when they gave everybody a number instead of their name. Even as you count many individuals together, you must remember the special nature of each person. We each have our own unique talents and our own qualities. When we count people, we need to look at them as individuals. We need to lift them up from the crowd and look at their qualities. Even though modern day society tells us we are all equal and no one should have more rights or privileges than anyone else. But this week's parasha shows us a different approach. The Torah describes how the Jewish people camped in the desert, each with their own position under their own flag in their tribes. And no one complained. No one said we want to be closer to the front or have a better position. No one said we want to be in a different tribe. No one said we want to be a Kohen or a Levi. Everyone was happy with the way they were. Just like in a car, you need all the parts to make it go. So too the Jewish people, each one of us has our own role. We are the wheels and the engines and the brakes and the batteries. As long as we pull our individual talents together for the greater purpose of the Jewish people, which is to be a light unto the world and to be a holy nation, then we're fulfilling our purpose. Yes, we are each different. But we will never have any reason to be upset about the roles we've been given. We each have something different to offer. Whether we teach, or we give charity, or we help others, or we volunteer, or we're just good role models, we can each make our own contribution. As long as we are united in the purpose of our journey. The most important part of the car is where we're going together. As we count 49 days until Shavuot, from Pesach until Shavuot, the days of the Omer, remember to not just count the days, but to make every day count. Wishing you and your families A Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining us once again. And now it's my pleasure to hand over to Chazan Brekei, who will lead us in Kabbalat Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
We're going to start off with Yedid Nefesh, which is in the art scroll on page 590. We're going to do the first verse. Sing along with me. We're going to cross to Corey Fuchs, one of our choristers, who's going to lead us up with L'chuna Ranana. Over to you, Corey.
Kabbalat Shabbat is in the art scroll on page 308. Adonai
you, Corey. That was awesome. We're on page 308 in the art scroll, bottom of the first paragraph. Shir Adonai, Shir Chadash, Yomai Kulare. Page 310. Here we go, we're going to sing together. ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגילה ירמיה, ירמיה, היי, ירמיה, עומדו, ירמיה, היי, ירמיה, ירמיה, יאללה לכל אשר מועד ירננה כל הצעיה לפני אדוני קיבה לימות הארץ יש בו תמר וצדק פעמים ואמונתו אדוני מתגן הארץ ישמחו עם רבים המלצר ילך יקרים אדוני יסינו חסידו מיד רשעים יצילי אור לצי ולשתלי שמחו צדיקים מאדוני Alright, everybody, page 312, top of the page, sing with me. Mizmor shir l'Adonai, shir chadash, ki niflaot asa, shialo yemino, uzero v'kodesho, ay, 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 odiya l'Adonai shuvato, לעיני גויים גילה צדקתו, זכר חסדו ואמונתו, לבית ישראל ראו כל נפשי הארץ, אל ישועת אלוהינו, הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ, פצעו ורננו, וזמרו זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה, בחצות צרור וכל שופר, הריעו לבני אדון המלך אדוני, נאי 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 לשפוטם בצדק ועמים במישרים. Page 312 in the middle of the level זועמים. Page 312. Oy Moshe v'Aaron v'chol Aaron v'Shmuel b'kol Shemo koyrei Sing with me, Page 314. Miel mole David. Page 314 in the middle. גדולת ימינך, ימינך, תעתיד צרורה קבל רינת עמך, סגבנו, טהרנו, נורא. ענה וכוח וכוח, גדולת ימינך, ימינך. תתיר צרורה, קבל רינת עמך, סגבנו, טהרנו, נורא. L'chadali, page 316. Sing along, everybody. One more time. Likrat kala, Shabbat, nikavela, idai shabot, lezachor, menimurecha lishmiyanu, ela meyuchad Adonai, echad, u'shemo echad shemuti, erev, velitila lecharot. Shabbat, nikavela, idai likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nechaki mekor ha'beracha meirosh mikerem nesu chasof maaseh b'machshavat techila lecharot. Likrat kala, Shabbat, nikavela, idai mikdash melech, yirmelu chakumi, tzei, mitoch afecha rav lach shevet, מימי חמהו יחמול עלייך מלך רותי לקראת שבת נקבלה Nari, may I farku milivshi bigdei, tif artech am yayad v'nishai v'yitalach mikorbo el nafshi geyala lecharoti. Nay, ikrat kala, nay, Shabbat, nikavela, idai toreri kiva orech, koni ori, shir daveri kevod, Adonai, alayich nigla lecharot. Likrat kala, תבושי. לא תבושי ולא תקני, מה תשתוכחי ומה תריבך, יחסו אני ימי ונבנתה עירתי לה, היה לך אדוני, היה לי גרת קרה, בני שבת מקבלה, והיו למשיסה שעושי ורחקו כל מבלייך, סלייך אלוהיך תמסוס חתן הכלה, היה לך אדוני, היה לי גרת קרה, היי בני שבת מקבלה, ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ויד אדוני, תריצי על ידיש ופרצי ונשמחה ונגילה, היה לך אדוני, לך ונילי רק קרה, בני שבת מקבלה, turn around, בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, היה לך אדוני, היה לי רק קרה, היה בני שבת מקבל, one more time, היה לך אדוני, לי רק קרה, בני שבת נקבלה, Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, whoever's out there, we hope that you've enjoyed Kabbalat Shabbat tonight. We're now going to hand over to Rabbi Glassman, who's going to give us some words of inspiration. But before we do that, we are going to sing for us all a song of gratitude, of appreciation, that we sing every single week. It's one of our favorites. Sing along. L'Hashem ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודו להשם. One more time. טוב להודו להשם, טוב להודו להשם, ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודו להשם. איי להגיד בבוקר חסדך, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, ואמונתך בלילות, טוב להודו להשם. איי להגיד בבוקר חסדך, חסדך להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, ואמונתך בלילות, טוב להודו להשם, טוב Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you very much to Corey for his beautiful, beautiful L'chun Ranana. And thank you to you all for joining us tonight. I now hand over to our Chief Minister, Rabbi Glassman.
Thank you, Rabbi Nagel and Chazan Brett Kay, for the beautiful words and songs that have been broadcast through the airwaves and on social media. It's wonderful to be able to connect people in this way. And as we're about to enter into the holiness of Shabbat and the serenity of Shabbat, I just wanted to communicate a message that I believe is quite meaningful and particularly relevant now as we kind of segue back into shul life very, very slowly and cautiously, of course. There's a very famous story about a tiny little Jewish town. It was so small that in the entirety of the town there were only 10 Jewish males over the age of 13. Now we all know that Jewish males over 13 have a religious obligation, a religious duty to pray 3 times a day in a minyan, in a quorum, in shul. Women, of course, are exempt from that obligation, are allowed to come to shul if they wish, and are encouraged to, but do not have the formal obligation per se to do it. Males do. Now, this town, every single day, never failed to achieve that minyan. All 10 of them knew that without them, the minyan doesn't go on. There were only 10. So they all came religiously for morning, afternoon, and evening services. One day, another family joined the community, and all of a sudden, there were not 10, but 11 Jewish males over the age of 13. And from that day and on, they would struggle every day to get a minyan. Why? The psychology behind it. Because each of the 11 would think to themselves, well, there's a minyan without me. I'm therefore not needed, and therefore I can sleep in. That message is one that applies as a broad life lesson, but particularly as it pertains to our Judaism. The takeaway message is that every single one of us is needed. Every single one of us is important. Every single one of us has a unique role to play in our Judaism and in this world. Whether it's in our families, in our communities, in our work life, in our social life, whatever the context it is in which we operate, we are there for a reason and for a purpose. One of the takeaway messages from the fact that we were to read Bamidbar this weekend in Shul, Bamidbar means in the desert. It's a reference to the desert in which God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. And our sages tell us that in the desert, 3,300 and something years ago, when God gave us the Torah at Sinai during Shavuot, which is what we're going to be celebrating next week, in that experience, every single Jewish male, woman, male, female, and child were gathered together at Sinai. It goes on to say, according to the Midrash, that even those Jewish souls who had not yet been born were also present in some sort of primordial form, in some sort of potential spiritual form. Every single one of us was there. Not a single Jewish soul that had ever lived or would ever live after that was absent from this massive advent of the giving of the Torah, from this epoch that would change our lives forever. And what that teaches us is that we cannot look to the 11th person and say, oh, well, it's his or her job to do the Jewish stuff. Each and every one of us has to try and embrace the Jewish stuff. So often I get asked by people, oh, Rabbi, I know someone who's not well, would you pray for me? And my response is always the same. Yes, of course, I will say a prayer for you, but there is no one better placed to recite that prayer to God for that unwell person than the one who's asking the question in the first place. There is no closer line to God. Rabbis do not have a closer line to Hashem. All of us have an equal line. All we have to do is be willing to pick up the phone. We just have to pick up the phone, open the prayer book, open the study book, open the Torah, and we all have equal access to it. It's such a beautiful and profound message about the Torah being given in a desert, which is ownerless because everyone owns it. Everyone can lay claim to the Torah, can access to the Torah, can access our Judaism, and most importantly, can actually practice our Judaism and experience it in the way it should be experienced. So if you're in a small town or in a big town, whether there's just 10 people or multiple people, let's always remember that each and every one of us is needed. If you're watching this video, you are needed. I am needed. Every single one of us is an indispensable part of the collective Am Yisrael of the Jewish people. And with that, as we go into Shabbat to enjoy, to celebrate, and to rest, let's always remember that Jews celebrating Shabbat are doing so together, united as one. We are all one people, we are all one community. And in that thought, hopefully it invites the blessings and the divine inspiration from above as we're about to light the Shabbat candles and subsequently recite the Kiddush and have the Shabbat meal. So with that, on behalf of our beautiful St. Kilda Shule, which by the way, we're going to be re-entering in just a few days' time for Shavuot, obviously within restricted framework according to government regulations. But from our beautiful Shul, I'd like to wish each and every one of you a wonderful, wonderful Shabbat.